welcome to our webinar training series on List Builder, how to connect with your audience. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christine Bundy, and I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Member 365, and I'll be your host today. Fun fact about me, for those who don't know, I love questions. So if you have any, please do not hesitate to put them in the question and answer section in the Zoom toolbar or menu. We will have a Q&A session at the end. So as they come to you throughout the presentation, please don't hesitate to write them in, even if they're not related specifically to lists. We are recording today's webinar, and it will be sent to everybody in the post email. Everyone has been muted and videos are off. So don't hesitate to follow along in your own Member 365 account or grab a notepad for any notes you'd like to take. Again, we will send you a recording, so if you did miss something, you can rewatch it later. For today's webinar, we're gonna go over just a few basics. So I'm gonna teach you a little what is List Builder and how does it work? And then we're gonna go through and create a few lists. I'm gonna tell you some best practices, and then we'll have time for those questions. So some list basics that we're going to go over, and I'm going to jump into Member 365 in just a minute. So we're going to start by learning the difference between a sign up form and a list and how the difference is for a member interacting with it. Then I'm going to take you through what is an and versus an or statement in a list when you're creating it. And then I'm going to tell you what it means when you get that red line through a contact record and what it looks like and what you can do to fix it. While we're doing that, we're also going to be creating 5 different lists. So these are the most common lists that we get asked to create. So how to create an all contact list, active member list, how to do one for non-members so you can reach out and try to get them engaged and convert them over to members, and then how to create a list based off of your event registration and tags. So I'm going to jump over to Member 365. So just bear with me as I change screens. Here we go. Okay. So in Member 365, we have sign up forms and lists. What's the difference? Well, the big difference is the sign up forms are found under email marketing. So if I click on email marketing, and I just have the tabs pre-opened, so there's less load time. So I'm just going to click through. But again, it's email campaigns, and then you have sign up forms here on the left-hand side. Now, I'm not going to go too much into this because in tomorrow's webinar, we're actually covering email campaigns, but I just really want you to understand the difference between a sign-up form and a list. So the sign-up forms are interactive with the member. So you can embed a sign-up form in your website to get subscriptions, and you can also have the member interact when they unsubscribe or in the member portal if they want to subscribe to a specific topic. You can also see it on the member profile. So if I go to a contact record, so this is my contact record, and I go over to email subscriptions, I can see all the subscriptions that I've signed up for on the administration side. Members can also do this in the member portal under my account email notifications. When somebody opts out, they also see these options. So it's really important to have a few so people don't just opt out completely. They can maybe change what communications they're receiving from you as an organization. So that's sign up forms. So interactive with a member. Now lists, and you create lists by simply coming up to the top and clicking on this list menu item, and you come to the list management page. Now lists are for admins only, and this is allowing you to filter or segment an audience that you want to communicate with based off of criteria on an individual's contact record. So like I said, we're going to create 5 different lists today, which are the most common lists that you will create. And there's lots of other filters, so I'll go through on how you can access those. But before we dive into that, I just want to take a moment to kind of give you the options that are available on the screen and what each of them mean. So first thing is and best practice is when you do create a list, properly label your lists. And the reason for that is so you don't have multiples. Helps keep your data place clean, because all lists within Member 365 are dynamic, meaning that people will automatically be added to or taken off based on the criteria of the filters that you've selected. And I'll get into that in just a little bit more when I go through the and versus the or statements. So over here on a list, you can either edit the list or viewing it by clicking on it, or you can come over here to the options, and there's multiple options here. So you can download it into an Excel sheet. You can view and edit it. You can add a tag. So this is a really cool feature that I love. So if you ever have a group of individuals that you need to tag, well, if you have them already in a list and you need to add an additional tag, you can do that by just clicking here. And it's either a my tag, so for yourself, or a shared tag. And if you need to learn how to create share tags, you can watch that in our webinar from yesterday that Stephen did on how to create share tags for the CRM basics. The other two options here are emails. So this actually will, if you click on here, it takes you to creating an email campaign automatically. So it takes you to that first step of putting in what the name is for you, what is the subject line, who it's from. So it automatically transfers over. So you don't have to click multiple times. You can just come here once your list is created and set up an email campaign right away. Then if it's something that isn't applicable, you made a mistake, you can simply delete, or if you're cleaning up because you realize you have duplicates, you can come in and delete as needed. You can also see when the list was created and by who the list was created. So we're actually going to jump in and create a list. And to create a list, it's as simple as coming over here and clicking on create a custom list. I'm going to go over how to import a list in just a minute, but I first want to go through how to create a list and then go through the list that we have previously looked at. So create a list. So again, I just have these tabs pre-opened. So if you click create a list, you then can come in here and give it a name. So again, really important, properly label your list so you're not having to create multiples. Then you also want to share your list so that all administrators have access to it. You do have the ability to keep them private, so they're for your view only. I only recommend you do this when it's a special project or there's something specific that you don't want anybody to touch, because then it's only for you. But typically, I always recommend you keep them shared, again, so you're not having to make duplicates of the same list, and everything is clean and it's easy because, again, these are dynamic. So I'm going to click continue and create my all contacts list. So that was the first one that we were going to create today. And then we'll go through the other ones in just a minute. So while criteria, so as I mentioned, our lists are dynamic. The list will automatically update based off of the criteria on a contact record. So, and this is just taking a minute to load. Right now, I have a total of 72 contacts in our database for this particular demo that we have. Now, it's as simple as that to create an all contact list. I have no filters. It's just strictly bringing everybody over that's in the system that I can email. Now, the one thing I do want to mention, and this was in the basics of what I mentioned, is what does it mean when you have a red line for a contact name? This means that you do not have email consent. So the system will not send them any communications with that red line through it. So if you need to communicate with someone or someone saying they're not receiving it, you might have to give them consent setting, re-enable their consent settings on their contact record. If you need to learn how to do that, you can watch our video from yesterday about CRM basics to determine how to re-enable consent settings. So the reason I bring this up is I always like to, it's best to check how many members you're actually communicating with. So you might have a list of 72 people, but if you send an email campaign, it's only going to go out to 50 because the majority of them have been crossed out because they don't have email consent. So it's something to always be aware of, is watching your subscriptions and who's opting out. So if people are completely opting out of all communications, they're going to get that red line and you're going to have to request for consent again. So, and versus or statements. So that was number 2. So this green box is a criteria box. And as I add filters to it, it creates an and statement. So our second list is creating an active member list. So I'm just going to change this and we're just going to call it active members. So I'm going to create a list for all active members in the system. So I can just simply click on membership, go to status. So again, come over here, last item, membership. I can come up here and go to status, and I can then select active. This is one filtered criteria. If I decided to create a brand new list and I wanted to add a criteria to this, so I'm going to go to events, for example. Let's say I wanted all active members that attended a specific event. I could come up here, I can go to registration. I could click on one of the meetings or one of the events. So I'm just going to click this meeting and meet and greet. And then my list would automatically reduce to anyone that fits both criteria. So they are active and they registered for the event. So that's an and statement. So they have to fit both. But if I decided to add another criteria box, so I have a second green box, and I said I also anybody that might have a lapse status, this number is going to increase again because it's saying it's anyone with this criteria or this criteria. So they are active and went to an event, or they are lapsed. So the list will automatically adjust based off of the filters. Now, if I saved this list, and you can do that simply by saving list or save and continue, which will take you back to the main page. Anytime someone fits one of these criteria, so if somebody became lapsed, they would automatically get added. If someone became active and registered for the event, they'd automatically get added. So these lists will automatically update for you. You only have to create them once in order to have an accurate list. So I'm just going to remove the or statement and the and statement just to show you that this is now going to increase again to only active members. Now, you could also add another criteria, which is common. If you're looking for a specific active membership category, you can go to membership and click on the membership category option and then select the category that you only want an active member for. So if there's a specific active membership, I would update my label of the name of my list to include that membership category because it's a specific active member list. If it's just an all active member list or general, I would remove the criteria. All right, so the next list that we're going to create is a non-member list. So I'm just going to remove these. So I'm removing both criteria. And I'm just going to change the name here. So we're just going to go to non-member. And I'm still going to keep it as a shared list. And then we're going to go over to the contacts. So contacts, and we're going to go down and there's an option right here for non-members. So if I click on this, it's going to provide me with everyone in the system that does not have a membership on their contact record. I'm going to click it, I'm going to hit save. It's just going to take a minute to load. So there are 30 contacts in the database. So there were 72 total and went down to 30. So there are 30 contacts that I can now reach out to and provide them with membership information, added value, market towards them in order to try and convert them over. So it is one of the most common uses for a non-member list. It also might be a non-member list that you want to clean up. Maybe you don't want non-members in your database. So it's also another option for you. So that's list number 3. So the next one is for events. So you can create lists, and again, these are dynamic, so they will automatically update as members do things within the system. So for our next one, we're doing the event registration. So as a member registers for an event, they will automatically get added to the list that you've created. So if I go to events, so I'm down here in my criteria box, I only want one criteria. It's going to be an and statement. And I go to register events. I can then select one of these items. So I'm just going to do the meet and greet again. And anytime somebody registers for this event, they're automatically going to get added to this list. So if I'm sending out email communications, I don't have to worry about creating another list. They're just automatically going to be added. Another best practice that I mentioned in the events webinar is that this is why it's also important to make sure that you have forced assignment on so that they actually appear in this list. If they don't have forced assignment or limit to purchaser, they will not appear in the list builder, and you'll have to do it manually. And you also, for events, so the other thing I wanted to point out is you have the ability to do not yet registered. So not registered to the event. So you can send out communications to only individuals that haven't registered. Again, really important to have that forced ticket assignment or limit to purchaser so that they do appear on the list, or they don't if you select not registered to event, so that you're only marketing to the people that haven't already signed up. So just a couple things of like previous webinars, and if you've missed them, you can rewatch them or find them on the website. They will be posted there by the end of the week. Okay, so we did all contacts, active, non-members, registration, and the last one is tags. So yesterday, Stephen went over how to create shared tags and my tags. Today, you can actually create lists based off of those. So I have a tag. I'm just going to give it a general name, and we're going to go down to tags here in your criteria, and you have the ability to do my tags. So again, only special projects do you use my tags. Otherwise, sharing is best because then you're not using it multiple times and having duplicates within your database. So I'm just going to go to the contact tags. There we go. And so these are all of the shared tags that are available. And so I can just select one. So I'm just going to say leader. You can, by the way, at the top here, either unselect or select all that are applicable. So if it's everything in here is what you want, you can just say click all. Now I'm going to save, and it's going to bring up only the individuals that have this specific tag on their contact record, which is one. If at any time you need to export a list, maybe you're doing call outs and you want to share a list, or you're providing a report for a third party, you can come down here and go to export. When you export a list, you can select the criteria that you want, or the columns, I should say, what the columns are that you want, by simply checking them off. So you can do member number, first name, last name, organization, email address, and so on. So any of these criteria will appear in that list so that you can provide that information. Now, I do want to point out that it doesn't provide the criteria for the list. It just provides you with a list of everyone that fits that criteria. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And then you can please hit download, and it will download directly to your Excel or download box, depending on your settings. All right, so we've created our list. Now I do want to go back and tell you about importing a list. So we've manually created a list, but you do have the option to import. And this is if you are bringing in from a third party, like maybe you're doing registration with another organization, so you want to send communications and they're providing you with an Excel sheet. We simply would click import a list, and it's similar to how we create a list. The only difference is this additional section. So again, label correctly, share, Then you would just copy and paste from the Excel sheet or manually add them with commas. So copy and paste it from Excel sheet will automatically do this for you, or you have to manually insert commas between the email addresses. Then you would just determine, do you have consent? So depending on where you're located depends on your consent setting. So if you're in the States, you have cancer laws, so you would get express consent. If you're in Canada, it depends how you acquired that email address, depends if you have implied or expressed. We do have some knowledge base articles on this if it's a little confusing. Also, Stephen went over it in our webinar yesterday. Then you simply hit import. Now, you cannot re-import to an imported list. If you have to, you might have to delete and then re-import again. Once it's imported, that's the list, and it's just, there is no dynamics with it. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So when you create a list based off of our filters, it's dynamic. When you import a list, it is as is, it's stagnant, it doesn't adjust in any form. All right, so we went through all the lists. We did, and now we're going to jump into some best practices. So I've mentioned this a few times throughout the webinar. Properly label your lists, keep them clean. Don't hesitate to go through if you've been with Member 365 for a while and clean them out. It's good practice. Also, make sure you share your list to reduce duplications and keeping your database clean. So I see some questions in the Q&A. I love questions. Okay, so if on December 1st, I create a lapsed member list, and I have a bunch of members that expire on December 31st, the lapse list will be updated after December 31st. I will have a bunch of additional members in the lapse list that didn't renew. Yes, so your lapsed member list is dynamic, so it will adjust. So if you create a list on the 1st, it's not going to be the same in a month from then. You need to be able to change. The system will automatically update based off of the criteria that you selected. So as people lapse, they will automatically get added. If somebody is on the lapse list and they renew, they get automatically removed off of it. So it's forever changing and adjusting based off of the criteria on a contact record. All right, so I have over 9,000 non-members in the database. Once I click on the send email, the email lost all of them, but I believe it's not something I can be done due to Castle. Is there another way to contact non-members? So it depends on how you acquired your non-members. So if they signed up for something, you might have express consent. So if they decided to come to an event, that would give you express consent here in Canada. So you would be able to communicate with them. It all depends on how you collected that, but you can create email campaigns and then use your lists to communicate with them, or subscription lists. So it really depends on how you acquired your non-members. All right, we have another question. Oh, so sorry, not another question there. Here, can I create a list based off of engagement score? Yes, yes, you can. So within the filters, and again, I didn't go over all of them. And here, let me just actually jump back into Member 365. So within the filters, there are lots of other criteria. So you can do it based off of fundraising campaigns, events, directory questions. So if you have a specific grouping that you're filtering in your directory, you can actually select those individuals in order to send email campaigns to. You can also do it by your members' engagement. So you can, it's not an exact number, it would be like a plus or minus, but you do have the ability to do a greater or less than, well, you do and the equal to, so if an exact number, in order to create a list and send to those individuals. This is really great if you're trying to communicate with your champions versus your individuals that you think are going to churn. For a little bit more about engagement scoring, there is a couple of videos that we have, and we have a new one coming up soon. So stay tuned to new webinars about to appear. All right, do we have any other questions? How do you create a directory using the criteria? So sorry, you don't create a directory in here, but you can filter based off of it. So if I have a directory already previously created and set up, I can come in here and have a directory form question. So directory forms. And I can filter based off of the answers. Now you need to make sure that the answers are not open-ended. They have to be either multiple choice, checkbox, or drop down. And then I could specifically go into, for this one, for the corporate membership, what business industry are you part of? And I can say, oh, I want to talk to all accountants. And then I can filter based off of that and communicate to only the individuals that have selected that they are an accountant. You're welcome. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, I just want to say before we take off that we do have a few resources available. I always like to point out, so we have our chat that is available during business hours 9 to 5. We also have a knowledge base, so if you have any questions, you can always check there first, and when they give you step-by-step instructions on how to do things. And then if at any time you have a question, instead of emailing us, we do ask that you submit a ticket through our ticketing system. All of this is available on the dashboard. So in NonMember 365 on the dashboard, you can see it right here. Now, I do want to point out that this view may look different to a couple of our legacy clients. It is our new beta. We are in the process of moving everybody over, so this will be your view soon. Very exciting. So just be aware that if you do need help, it's right here. We're here to help. We love questions. I love questions. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you all very much for joining, and stay tuned for tomorrow's webinar. If you haven't signed up, you still can. It's on email marketing campaigns, and then we have a few coming up next week. And we also have Bambora being our partners coming out on February 18th to do a special presentation if you're interested. So thank you very much. Have a great day.